Okay, so here's just kind of like a verbal explainer on the term paper assignment. So all the instructions are written on it. If you're more of a reader, you don't need to keep watching. This is more just for the people who like to hear it out loud. And I'm not reading the assignment sheet out loud. I'm just kind of doing a summary out loud that maybe will make it easier to understand. So the gist of it is you want to think of yourself as an argument coach. You are going to be writing to someone else, they could be real or made up, who is going to be making an argument to a particular audience about a particular topic. So they're going to be the one who ultimately makes the argument. This is like your prep session written down to help them get ready to do this argument well. And so you are going to, the person you're talking to already agrees with you. You don't have to convince them of anything. This is all about, we already agree, and I'm going to tell you what I know about persuasion so that you can persuade this audience effectively. And then it's going to be broken down into 3 sections. You're going to be explaining or helping them understand who their audience is. What do they need to know about them to be persuasive to them? You're going to be going over some persuasive strategies, either ones we've covered in the class or other ones, to help them persuade. So they'd be ones that you want to be, appropriate to the topic and situation. But so it'll be audience, understanding, persuasive strategies, and then you'll give them like the best arguments to use. Like you'll pick like 3 or 4 of the best arguments to use for this situation. So it's kind of like a highlights reel of arguments. You don't have to get into tons of detail. That last part is what is usually what you do for the research paper, and you would just do it without commentary. In this case, you're going to be like, one argument you should use is this. You give the information and explain the reasoning, and then you explain this is why it's a good choice for this audience. And so here, this is sort of like if you've ever seen a DVD with the commentary track on where the people who made the movie talk about the choices that they made as they put the movie together. That's kind of what you're doing, but I guess ahead of time. But it's the same idea of instead of just making the argument, you're going to be doing a lot of explaining, here's why you would want to make the argument this way, instead of just jumping straight to making it. Because I think a lot of times when we go straight to making it, we don't really think about what is the best way to do it. So here, that is your whole purpose, is to figure out what is the best way to do it. So I'm going to give you just a little visual demonstration with an example just to kind of help understand the idea of it. And this is a fictional situation, which you can definitely do if there's a TV show or book or movie or anything like that that you're really into. You can be writing to a character in the show, helping them persuade someone else on the show of a certain thing. Like I've had people do Breaking Bad before. I've had people do Game of Thrones. I think Entourage was one. Degrassi was one. So I've had people do this really, really well. So if you're into a particular show or movie or book or something like that, that can work really well for this, and it's a fun way to approach it. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be like political. It doesn't have to be political. It can be very like closer to home, like relationship oriented. There's a lot of ways to do this well, and I'm hoping everybody can find something that is of interest to them so that you're not going to hate working on this for the whole semester. I want you to pick a topic that you like, because I want you to, you may not enjoy writing it because it's still going to be a paper, but at least you won't hate it, and that is a good goal to aspire to. So that's this paper in a nutshell. Here's an example of how it might play out and who's talking to who and so on. Okay, so here is my visual demonstration of an example term paper topic using a pop culture reference. So here we have some characters from Walking Dead. We have Michonne, we have Tyrese, and we have a zombie. And I want you to think of this as being like the diagram on your term paper assignment sheet. So let's, for this purposes, you are Michonne. So this is, you are going to be Michonne giving advice to the reader, Tyrese. Tyrese needs to persuade this zombie not to bite him. Michonne is going to give Tyrese advice about how to do this well. So I'm going to back up and I'll be adding some text up here for you to see, which you'll be seeing now. So the idea here is that you are giving advice to the reader, and the information that you give, that's your term paper. The argument that will take place later, the reader will try to persuade the audience to, agree with them. And so in this case, it is, please don't bite me, zombie. And so that advice you give is to prepare Tyrese for the argument. And so as that advice, you're going to cover audience. What do you need to know about your audience. And so your audience analysis in this case would be understanding zombies. What do you need to know about zombies to be persuasive to them? What are they motivated by? What's important to them? How do they make their decisions? Things like that. Then you're going to cover persuasive strategies. And so that would be things like which is going to work best, emotional appeal or logical appeal. Are there ways you could speak to a zombie? You might want to keep it simple because zombies are not known for their intelligence. But there'll be speaking simply would be a persuasive strategy. Emotional appeal would be a persuasive strategy. There's going to be a ton. We're going to cover timing probably matters in this situation. So you're going to cover those strategies. And then you're also going to give him some example arguments. What are like the 3 best arguments you can make to this zombie to try to persuade it not to bite you? And so you would both give the argument. One argument you want to try is this, and then you would explain that argument. Why is that a good choice for this audience? And that's where you refer back to what you said about the audience. What do they need to keep in mind about who they're talking to? How can they take advantage of that in this situation? So that's one example of many. You definitely do not have to write about zombies, but I hope that helps illustrate the idea. So remember, this is you. The advice that you give to your reader is your term paper. And then the argument that the reader ultimately makes to their audience, that's something that would be happening in the future that you are preparing them to do.